Hello and welcome back to the Space City X Files. I'm Rick, as you know, and I'm glad you decided to join us again. And today's story is a strange case about a town in the northwest United States that mysteriously got covered in this strange gel-like blob that rained from the sky one morning. Now, this gel, appearing harmless at first, was just a nuisance, but shortly after people came in contact with it, they became violently ill, and local pets actually started dying. What was the cause of this gel? What did the government have to say? Let's dive in and hear the story of the Oakville Blobs. And before we do dive in, let me get the announcements out of the way, and I'll be quick. Space City X Files appreciates each and every one of you for having to listen today. It's because of your support that the word continues to spread and new listeners from all over the world find our story each week. If you're a new listener and wonder how you could become a supporter of the show, there are three main ways to do that, and I'll share that information with you now. If you would like to become an SCXF member, you can go to the website and click on the Patreon tab, and once there, you have the option of a $5 or $10 a month membership, and that's going to get you unreleased content, extra full episodes, access to a Discord group, which is growing in content each day, and free merch that will drop on you at random times. 2, if you're not quite ready for a membership, that's okay, but if you would like to make a small monetary donation on the website, there's also a support us with the tip tab, and there you can type in whatever amount your heart compels you to give. 50 cents, $1, $5, it's all love and appreciated the same. The third way to support and the most effective way is whatever platform you're listening on, leave us a written review on what you thought. Now, whether you loved it or hated it, your feedback helps us get better and it brings in more listeners, and that's priceless. One last reminder, the show store is also now open, so if you would like to buy some merch, just mosey on over there on the website, and it's all there for you to purchase. Hoodies, tees, stickers, all badass stuff. One last thing I'd like to add that we are a new podcast, and we're committed to elevating the quality of the program. So just know that whatever comes in from you is going right back into the show. All right, that'll do it for the announcements. Okay, so a quick overview on how the show will play out, and so you all know what you're in for. First, we'll take a look at the Oakville, Washington area and do a quick dive to find out what the area is like. I'll also share with you some interesting things that I found in the nearby vicinity. And then we're going to go over the case and incident details and examine what the locals say about the blob rain. That just sounds better, in my opinion, right? See, if they had me around when all this was going down, I would have definitely coined the phrase the Oakville blob rain. It just sounds cooler for some reason. But afterwards, we'll take a look at what the local authorities claim to happen or what didn't happen. And then, for the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm going to share with you what I theorize went down. All right, so let's get going. The city where this all takes place is called Oakville, Washington. And Oakville is not a very big place at all. It's a small town. The census map had it listed at about 0.50 square miles. So pretty much if you blink while you're driving through it, you probably missed the town. The census in 2020 had the population at about 715. So there's that. I mean, it's your traditional picture of what a small town is. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, small towns have their pros and cons, you know. Everybody knows everyone. Everybody knows everyone's past. And in this case here, that could be a pro. I mean, one, I'm sure people know who the storytellers are, so if somebody was lying, they would know. And if everybody in the town was getting sick after coming into contact with this jail, like we mentioned in the intro, then it'd be a whole lot easier to corroborate that in a small town. So let's see what else. The Oakville area is considered to have a warm summer Mediterranean climate, which means dry, hot summers and mild, wet winters. It's reported to rain here a lot, though, like 275 days out of the year. But I think that's pretty common for around the Seattle Pacific Northwest area. I think they're kind of known for that. And you know, when you think of rain that many days, you could easily be like, why haven't they floated away yet? But it's not that kind of rain. Okay, so from what I've read, during the rainy season, there's like an overcast drizzle type rain that's persistent. So it doesn't. I mean, it does flood some areas, but it's not. It's not like Noah's Ark or anything like that. So now here are some of the interesting things that I found around the general area. So to the left and to the right and to the south of Oakville are all military establishments. To the east, you have a huge joint U.S. Air Force slash Marine base called the Lewis McChord Joint Base. And to the southwest on the coastline, you have a National Guard base. And to the south in Vancouver, you have something called the U.S. Department of the Air Force. So this is just for reference. I looked into most of these establishments and didn't really find anything out of the ordinary. It seems like a bunch of fighter jet squadrons and Marine Corps. And I tried to check out that U.S. Department of the Air Force building, but I couldn't really find much on it. The Google listing didn't even have a website. So now the other significant find in the area is just to the north of Oakville, approximately 40 miles, is the Olympic National Forest. Now this beautiful place just happens to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. If you don't know what a UNESCO stands for, it's the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Now I have my own opinion about anything the United Nations has their hands in, and I don't think I'm alone on that one, but that's for a different show. So while I was doing the episode over Mike Mansholt, the mysterious death of Mike Mansholt, I seen that he was visiting a place in Malta that happened to be a UNESCO site. And on a hunch, I started looking into other UNESCO sites and found that all kinds of weird shit goes down there on a regular basis. And these sites are spread out all over the world too. That little rabbit hole also brought me to a bunch of people who were also mentioned in the missing 411 cases, which is another very interesting topic about people going missing in national parks and a possible cover-up to keep things hush. So I figured I'd let you know about this, and we'll pick back up on that soon after the details, but for now I'm just giving you the lay of the land. And alright, I think that sums up what the Oakville area is like. Now you know also what's in the general area, so let's move ahead with the detailed case. The details of the case. It's August 7th, 1994, around 3 a.m. or so in a small town, Oakville, when one of those persistent showers we talked about hits. Now, like we mentioned, this was not out of the ordinary, but what the local residents noticed also coming down with the rain was a translucent jelly-like blob was dropping down everywhere and covering the ground, houses, roads, everything. One of the local police officers, a man named David Lacey, recounts that he was on the road when this rain blob combination started to pour, and he can immediately tell that something was mixed with the rain. So he tries to hit the windshield wipers, but instead of streaming off with the water, this blob stuff just smears across his windshield, causing him to have to pull over to the gas station and wipe it off by his hand. So Officer Lacey hops out and throws on some latex gloves, which is smart, by the way. And he starts to remove the blob by hand. He describes the blob as a gritty type of jello. You can squish it in your hands, he says, but it won't crumple away. It just kind of ekes out from between your fingers. The fact, though, that it wouldn't squeegee off with the water and the way it's smeared, though, is a testament to like what this stuff is like. I picture something like oil based. I don't know if you ever got like tar on your car or on your hands, but if you pour water on it, try to wipe it off, it just kind of smears and leaves a big mess. And so Officer Lacey, though, he was trying to be as careful as possible, with the gloves. However, I don't think he accounted for what was coming down in the rain being dangerous. I mean, why would he? So as far as he knows, it's just he don't know what it is that smeared across his windows. So, but unfortunately, though, this is where people begin to find out it's much more than just a hassle. So the ones who came into contact with this blob find themselves violently ill in a short period of time, and the symptoms are reported to be flu-like and lasts for 2 to 3 months. It almost sounds like something we all faced not too long ago, right? Anyhow, this affected quite a lot of people because it reportedly covered 20 square miles, which is more than enough to fill their whole town. It's worth noting, too, that it didn't just happen that one night. Over a period of 3 weeks, it fell 6 times. And let's hear the account of the lady who actually broke the story and see what happened to her. So, Dottie Hearn saw the rain coming down early that morning, and when it stopped, she went outside, and that was the first time she encountered the blobs. Now, Dottie reports that she walks outside and touched some of the goo with her bare hands, and probably not the smartest thing to do. And let this be a lesson, folks. So if some white blob or clear blob falls out of the sky on your house, don't go out and touch it. So she picks some up and describes the texture, and it matches the description of Officer Lacey's to a T. So it's clear now at this point that at least these two have encountered the same substance. Now, Dottie doesn't think much of the goo, nothing to make her think it would cause major harm at least. So she goes inside and washes her hands, and not long after is so incredibly ill that she passes out on the floor. Now, Dottie's daughter, Sunny Barcliff, is the one who comes in. She comes over and discovers that Dottie's passed out on the floor. And Sunny describes the state she finds her mom in, saying that she was cold to the touch, sweating, and she says her breathing was also very strained. So, not thinking about the possibility of there being any kind of contaminant around, Sunny helps her mom to the car and takes her to the nearest hospital, fearing that she may pass away before she makes it there. Once at the hospital, the doctors can get Dottie stabilized, but after 3 days of tests, they can't find out what the cause is. And they can't find anything out of the ordinary either. So the conclusion of what Dottie's ailments were, they say it was caused by an inner ear infection. Now, this would have been an okay explanation had Sunny, her daughter, not fallen sick the very same day. And Sunny had experienced the same symptoms as her mom and Officer Lacey. And this is starting to look more like more than a coincidence the more we find out. And it's also worth noting that pets like dogs and cats became ill and died after coming into contact with the blob. In fact, the same day on the 7th, Sunny's cat would also pass away, it was reported. Another resident named Beverly Roberts would also become ill with the same exact symptoms. In her case, though, instead of leaving it up to the doctors to diagnose her, Beverly started following up with people she knew who encountered the blob and got sick. And she started finding out after talking to enough people that the symptoms were lasting 2 to 3 months at a time. Sunny Barcliff, after she was well enough, took some samples to a microbiologist named Mike McDowell, who worked with the Washington State Health Department. So she takes it to him to try and find out what the hell this stuff was that was making everyone so sick. And this is where the case kind of gets weirder. So after Mike is able to run some tests, he finds that the gelatin had 2 types of bacteria, one that was found inside the human digestive system. What this could mean, we're not sure, but the crazy part is that how did it end up in the rain? And so the best theory Mike has was that an airplane overhead dumped some of the frozen waste down on the town, and it started coming down with the rain. And this kind of sounded like a possible answer at first, but after speaking with the airlines, they determined that the pilots don't have the ability to dump the waste mid-flight. It's not like there's a lever or something that they can pull inside the cockpit that drops the poop everywhere. And so waste from the airplane is sucked out once the plane lands on the tarmac. So they have like it's kind of like porta potties. They come in and clean it out. There have been a few occasions, though, that some did leak, but it would have been dried and dyed a blue color. And it definitely wouldn't have been enough to cover a whole town, and also it would have had a foul smell. I mean, because it's crap. But this blob, the town, the whole town says it didn't have any smell. It was just clear, and it wouldn't have been a Jello either. It would have came down as ice. So at this point, we know that it contains a bacteria, but are still left with the unanswered questions. What is it, and where did it come from? So Sunny ain't giving up. She takes the last sample to another microbiologist named Tim Davis and hopes she can get a definitive answer on the goo's origin. So Tim does his examination and finds bacteria like Mike had, but Tim finds something else that is extremely odd. He believes that he found I'm probably going to butcher this word, but a eukaryotic cell, which is a complex organism that is found in humans, pets, fungus, plants. So whatever this blob was, it came from something that was alive at some point. So what we know so far is the blob had bacteria that could cause illness in humans and death in animals, and it came from something that was living at some point. Pretty freaking weird, right? Still, Sunny does not have the main answers to the whole town's question, so she's starting to kind of lose hope, but eventually she can find another doctor who tells her, like, basically, look, I will invest as much time and resources as I have in order to figure this out. I'm intrigued, and the people need answers, so bring me the sample, and I'll get to work. Sunny is blown away by the news, and now she's full of hope, so she heads over to Dr. Tim Davis's office to pick up the sample, and can you guess what happened? I mean, a conspiracy wouldn't be a conspiracy if key evidence didn't disappear, right? So Tim's like, well, yeah, let me go get the stuff for you, Dottie. Sonny, just wait right here. He goes over there and he's like, oh shit, they're all missing. And this pretty much ends any chance of ever finding out what this stuff was, because that was Sonny's last sample. Of course, right? How convenient. So with nothing left to test, all Sonny and the town folks can do is follow up on theories that could possibly lead to answers. Now, days before the blob rain, many of the town folks recalled low-flying military planes flying back and forth, leaving trails in the sky. Now, they have no evidence that this had anything to do with the rain, with the blob rain, but it was worth checking out. So they reach out to the local military to find out if they were conducting any tests on or around the 7th, and then the 3 weeks following. And it's noteworthy to say that at this point, the town folks had already reached out to the multiple media sources, and the case has started to gain a bit of notoriety. So this may have made the military more inclined to answer their questions. So the Air Force simply replied that they were conducting bombing runs over the Pacific in August, but did not know anything about the supposed blob rain, nor had anything to do with its disbursement. When this information came out about the bombings, this gave way to one of the theories that people just decided to go with. The theory is when the Air Force was bombing over the Pacific, they hit a school of jellyfish, and this caused particles of it to evaporate into the atmosphere. Later, when the clouds became heavy enough and started to rain, the pieces of jellyfish came down with it and covered the town. Now, I guess this is a possibility. However, it doesn't really answer any of the key questions that were brought up from the examinations. Why did it have bacteria in it that were found in human digestive systems? Why did it make humans sick and kill animals? And how did it come down for 3 weeks after August the 7th? I mean, exactly how much jellyfish splooge went up into the clouds? I don't know, but this seemed to satisfy most of everybody's curiosity, and the case eventually died down and was wrote off as just another wacky incident. So these are the case details, and to this day there has not been a definite answer as to what the blob rain was. But for now, let's let's recap what the local paper and authorities say happened in the case. So, as we just mentioned, it's the claim that the Air Force bombings in the Pacific caused jellyfish particles to evaporate into the atmosphere and eventually came down and rained over the town for a time span of 3 weeks. But, I mean, we know the problems with that, right? I mean, there's a question about the bacteria in the human digestive system. If this was jellyfish, it would have had a foul odor, and the blob that was on the town was odorless, and so that doesn't really match up. Another theory that somebody came up with, it was something called star jelly. It was also a possibility for the cause of the blob. Star jelly is something that I found on the internet. You can check it out on Wikipedia, but it's like a substance that can fall from the sky or appear on the ground after a meteor shower. But this stuff usually has a foul-smelling odor. In all the cases that I looked up over it, people said that it was stank. So, and this stuff doesn't last very long either. Like, if you're not there when it appears, then you're not gonna notice it because it's just gonna disappear right away. And I mean, but looking at pictures though, it is almost an exact match. But it just doesn't match up with the Oakville Blob rain stuff. And so, let's see here. But one thing though, it is worth noting, and I don't know how this fits in with the Oakville case, but I did find a case in a place called Everett, Washington, and they did like a little news report saying that they found this star jelly stuff on the ground. And this was back in 2021. And did people get sick from it? I don't know. I wasn't able to find any evidence to support anybody getting sick from this stuff. But then again, it was 2021. So it would have been really difficult to tell if people were getting sick from this gel or getting sick from that crazy virus that was going around. And I don't think they would even be able to tell the difference, to be honest with you. So, the next theory suggests that water spouts caused the jellyfish to fall in the town. Now, this is certainly not the first case of strange stuff falling from the sky in rain. There have been plenty of strange cases. There's been cases of blood. There's been cases of screws. There's been cases of fish. And this theory goes that a water spout lifted up debris from a landfill, and the trash that was lifted up included like baby diapers, and you know how baby diapers, they got gel, like that little gel stuff in it, and that's what fell all over the town, and this is what caused the test to show bacteria. And that was what they're saying is the reason why they found bacteria, because it did come from a digestive tract. So this theory actually does kind of explain some of the strangeness away, but the only major part that remains is how could it cause such severe illness in humans that lasted for 2 to 3 months. Now, if you got sick from handling someone's feces or something like that, I don't know if it lasts 2 or 3 months or not, but how could it kill pets too? I mean, I seen a dog eat a diaper, so, and he was fine. He was happy about it. So, but also the fact that this happened 6 times in a span of 3 weeks. So how is this water spout going to be hitting the same landfill and dumping it over the same town, 3 times in a row? It just doesn't make sense. So these theories, from what I glean, are the ones that might be the most logical. can't tell you what to believe, and I wouldn't even try to really, because like I always say, guys, I just present the facts, and I hope it helps to bring some clarity to the issue. If you find this case interesting, you know, by all means, don't let my podcast be the end of your curiosity. You know, just hop on the internet and check out the case details, and then send me an email on what you found. I want to hear what you think, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts. And so before we wrap this up, I'm going to share with you some of the more eccentric theories. Like, these are kind of out there, and I've heard these while I was doing my research. And then I'm also going to share with you some of my own personal ones. But so the first theory that I seen floating around the message board is that this blob rain was like a beta test of a bio-made chemical weapon. Basically, those plane trails that the residents seen and they reported in the days leading up to the first rain on the 7th was actually the military seeding the clouds with this diluted version of a strong chemical agent. Now, just to add that no evidence has ever been found to back this up. None at all. But could it be a possibility? I mean, I would hope not. But if it was, I mean, it would be the perfect weapon and a stealth killer if it falls in the right type of weather. I mean, so if it's dark out and it's raining and it's overcast and the stuff is coming down, I mean, how are people going to know any difference? They're going to touch it and think it's, a bird crapped on them or something. I don't know. And then remember how Officer Lacey said that, remember how he said how it smeared across his windshield instead of just washing off with the wipers? So that would mean that this stuff would just be sticking to everything. It wouldn't wash off. It wouldn't evaporate too quickly. So unless you just stayed inside and waited for it to dissipate, which who knows how long that would take, this stuff would be tracking around everywhere, in your house, in your car. I mean, just a small dose made people sick for months and killed animals. Imagine a more concentrated version. I mean, it could easily wipe out a whole town, or maybe even a whole country. And if you think the government hasn't tested chemical weapons on American soil, you'd be wrong. I mean, if you want a couple of names of some cases, there was Operation LAC. Sorry, I forgot how to talk. There was Operation There was Operation LAC. There was the Cold War chemical weapons test. They tested chemical weapons in Hawaii. A quick search and you'll find an unreal amount of cases. If a chemical weapon was the case there in Oakville, there were a lot of similarities to the virus that we just faced here recently around the whole world. Maybe this was like a prelude to that. I don't know. I can't say yes or I can't say no. I can just say this is what I've heard. This one tripped me out though. And seeing all the cases where the government experimented with Americans made me feel really uneasy. All right, number two, this theory here is from a deleted Reddit user. So he made this statement and then deleted his account. Now I don't know if it went down like that, but it just said that he deleted his account. So this theory was so well put together that people on the forum immediately called him out as an inside man trying to leak information somehow. In other words, it's so far out there that it's likely to be true. So the user is quoted saying, and this is quoted, it says, unless it was made from illegally dumped hazmat waste from a top secret scientific experiment to create universally compatible synthetic white blood cells that can be injected into any patient to enhance their immune system without transmitting any disease or genetic conditions from host to host. Like somebody tried to make the mobile one for immune systems and it didn't work out. So they dumped it in the ocean and it got sucked up into the clouds. End quote. Now, I mean, reading that for the first time, I was like, wow. I mean, that kind of blew my mind. It was like a universal blood cell. So if this guy on Reddit wasn't a spook and just some guy who thought this stuff up, then you already know that some genius in a top secret lab, a top secret research facility, would have had to imagine that same exact thought at some point. And what do you know? They have. And they are. I'll include the link in the show notes, but to this day, scientists are indeed working on a blood alternative that can completely replace natural human blood while fulfilling all the natural things natural blood does to sustain life. According to this website that was created in 2022, prominent scientists say they're about a decade away at most. So would this cure death? I mean, this was a strange one that kind of sent me spiraling down a whole nother trail for a good 3 hours. And I'm super interested and definitely will give you some updates on what I find. So keep checking YouTube. I mean, and since they'll likely be short updates and not full episodes, I'll go ahead and post them under the strange happenings category. So stay tuned there because I'm going to be checking on that one. All right, number 3. So on the next theory, it's important to know a lot of strange shit has happened in Washington State. I mean, just Google strange shit in Washington State and you'll see what I mean. And that's exactly what I did. And I found a story from a few towns over from Oakville. So like it's like to the right of Oakville. It's a place called Ellensburg. And it had a strange story about a bottomless pit called Mel's Hole. And so the guy who owned the land that the pit was on was named Mel Waters, hence the name for the hole, okay? But he claimed that this pit would never fill up. And when he lowered about 80,000 feet of monofilament fishing string into the hole, the hole wanted to keep going. It was deeper, which is like a physical impossibility. I mean, a hole, he claimed it to only be about 9 foot wide. So, I mean, 9 foot wide, 80,000 foot deep, it would collapse on itself. So that's supposed to be impossible. But he claims that this hole brought animals back to life and claimed that it had a bunch of other mystic powers associated with it. Eventually, his land was seized by the U.S. government. Big surprise there, right? But while he was reporting some of the wacky things that the hole would do, he mentioned that it would shoot this black beam up into the sky for hours on end. And it wasn't just him that reported that. There's like documentaries going around, people interviewing and asking the townsfolk about this Mel's Hole, and they all said that they seen this black beam. So it's not just him. But me doing the research on Oakville, coming across this little detail, it made me pause and think. Could this be the cause of the poisonous blob that rained down over Oakville? So Mel had mentioned in his case that animals would not go around the hole, which was strange, being that it was in a forest. I mean, why wouldn't they go there? And they would just steer clear of it. But he says, he says that they wouldn't go near the thing, so birds wouldn't land on it, nothing. And animals are not stupid. When they sense something that is a hazard to them, they're pretty much going to steer clear of it. It's like how the miners used to take the canaries down there to sense the gas pockets. I mean, if those canaries weren't in the cages, do you think they would hang around long enough to die from poisoning? Hell no, they would fly out of there. And maybe they did this because they knew, maybe the animals around that area did this because they knew whatever was down in Mel's Hole could easily poison and kill them. Maybe this black beam that reached all the way to the clouds was actually pumping whatever poison it had into the atmosphere. Maybe this is the reason the U.S. government seized Mel's property. Now, Oakville happened in 1994. And when did Mel's story come out about the hole and the land being stolen away? 1997. So they're only 3 years apart. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. All right, number 4. And one last thing. I'm gonna do a full episode too on that Mel's Hole. So if you found that last theory interesting, the full story is gonna be coming probably next episode. So stay tuned for that one if you find it interesting. And all right, this is my last theory. So I'd like to pick back up on the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Olympic National Park. So, as I told you, I found out a lot of strange things go on at these World Heritage Sites. And the claims about what it could be that goes on there are endless. I mean, some people are saying aliens, some people say Bigfoot, some say fairies. And then you have the whole parallel black holes claim that could be the causes for these disappearances. There's a little bit of everything. Also mentioned it had some connections to the missing 411 case, which is also about people going missing or found murdered in state parks all over the United States. So while I was getting the lay of the land for this Oakville case, like I usually do, I find landmarks around the area and I do a quick dive to see if anything strange ever happened. And it didn't take long to find something on this Olympic National Park. While doing the research, I came across the disappearance of a young 7-year-old boy named Bryce Herta. Now, Bryce and his family were visiting Olympic National Park and were walking along this area called the Shishi Beach. And together they come to this area that requires them to scale this hill-like type of thing. And for some reason, it was too much for Bryce to handle, so he stays behind. And the family says they're going to go to the top, and then they're going to turn around and come right back down, and they're going to meet him back down below in that same spot. So they do that. They go up, they make their way back down, but Bryce is no longer there. And so they check around, but they can't find him, and they immediately start to panic. So in this particular case, Bryce's grandfather just happens to be the police chief around there. So the search starts immediately. No time is wasted. And they have about 30 volunteers. They got dogs. They got mountain climbers. They got the Air Force. They got to work. So, but yet not one shred of evidence can be found to prove that Bryce was ever there. The only thing that can be found was footprints in the sand that happened to be the same size as young Bryce. And the eerie part is the footprints would continue for a while and then stop. And then they would continue some ways ahead and then they would stop. And it was like he was being carried. But there was only one set of footprints. Now, young Bryce Herta was never found. And what year was it when he went missing? 1995. So as we mentioned before, many assumptions have been made about the disappearances happening at these parks. But let's go out on a limb and say aliens were the cause of them. Now, what if they're taking these people and doing experiments on them, and these experiments happen to involve their blood? Now, once the experiments are done, they empty the waste out into the atmosphere, and that's what this blob rain is that rained down over Oakville. Now, that would explain, the cells that cell that was found that belongs to a living organism, and it would also explain the bacteria. But what if whatever unknown chemical they were using was what that bacteria was, and that's what was making people so violently ill? I mean, if the U.S. government knew about this, would they even make it known to the common people? I can't say for sure. And just to add again, there's no evidence to support these theories, but they're just theories. But they're good ones. And so, that wraps it up, though. And these are the facts of the case. So you heard the details. You heard what the local authorities say. You heard some that are floating around on the web. You heard my personal theories. But what do you think? I mean, I want you to share your thoughts with me. So send me an email at info@spacecityxfiles.com. And that's info@spacecityxfiles.com. And I would love to hear what you think. But okay, so that about does her for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the case. I know I got a kick out of all the craziness. It was very entertaining, to say the least. Were you not entertained? That was my gladiator impression. But anyways, alright, take care, friends. This is Rick with the Space City X-Files, and I will see you on the next episode.